Hola, Denise. It's so good to have you here.
Hi, Ingrid. I'm so glad to be here.
We are honored, really honored to have added you to our bureau and start working with you. And I wanted to start just asking for you to give us a little bit of background on who Denise is.
Well, I am a former Chief Information Officer, senior leader, C-suite member in the world of technology. I am one of the few Latinas that made it to the Chief Information Officer role. And it took a good bit of resilience and self-awareness and self-confidence to achieve that. But I'm really proud that I got there, and it was an incredible journey. I served in technology operations leadership for more than 20 years in legal, nonprofit, profit, education industries in the realm of technology. So as a result of my experiences as one of the only women at the table, I decided to retire my last CIO role to lean into my passion for people because I love challenges. And technology is a major challenge in organizations. But the other challenge is the other opportunity that's even more challenging than technology is people. So because I'm a growth-minded person, I decided to lean into people for the next chapter of my career. And I launched a company called T.H.R.I.V.E. And T.H.R.I.V.E. does leadership development, team effectiveness training, and public speaking to help kind of, I'd say, challenge some of the status quo that happens for women in technology organizations or in technology roles as leaders. And I've developed some talks so that we can dive into that conversation and provide inspiration and practical strategies.
Yeah, so let's talk about the talks that you have that I am pitching to some of my clients. And so we can, I want to start with a what's your frequency talk. Tell me more about that one.
So that's one of my newest talks. And the reason that I created it was because I had a client that had a hip hop themed summit, which, by the way, if you're having a conference these days and you add the theme of hip hop, there is no choice but for it to be fun. So it was one of my favorite assignments to get hired for a people of color conference that had a hip hop theme. So I developed a talk called What's Your Frequency based on my analogy, the metaphor that when we aren't communicating on the same frequency with our teams or colleagues, all we hear is static in between the stations. And in this talk, workshop, it's a kind of a workshop, practical strategies and fun. We challenge ourselves to come up with what our frequency is so that when we're trying to help our colleagues learn our station, we know how to articulate that to them and they know how to articulate that to us. And it's super fun. I got great feedback. So I just weave that what's your frequency thread throughout the entire talk, and we dig into the T.H.R.I.V.E. operating system. The first step in the system is transparent assessment, and we get real about like how are we showing up in meetings, what is our strength, what is our communication style, and then we just have conversations about how to leverage those.
So what were the women say? I'm curious about the feedback. Tell me.
Oh, well, I actually talked to one of the women that was in the session today because she felt so inspired by the conversation that we had in that room. She expressed to me that I created a space of trust, of psychological safety, where she felt capable of sharing in ways that she can't share in her traditional role and at her office, and to be in community with other leaders who are sharing practical strategies that they use to tackle some of the issues that she brought up. And also to be able to collaborate with other people around real case studies. So in that talk, we actually talk about real situations. And we do it in a fun and light way, but we get real about what it means to lead as a woman.
Hmm.
We talk about those issues. And I
I mean,
really like to keep people focused on positivity. So I
mhm,
always try to find a way to get us back to, how
yeah.
we can learn and grow from each other.
And I love that it's like, okay, well, you're already in the room. What can you do to grow and, open more doors and get more seats at the table? So I think that's very powerful. And I love that. I love that it always happens like that, I think, in the speaking industry, like that speaking engagements come out from either request or needs or seeing that there's, and you leaning into it. And so I love the complement of the frequency in your frequency channel and being able to communicate that. Because I can see that even as you shared, not even going into a session of what my channel looks like and then what my team's channels look like. And
And how that space in between the channels is full of static, so we can't actually
yeah,
hear each other in
yeah.
stereo, right? So that's what the What's Your Frequency talk is about. There's some music in it, because I love music. I often share a soundtrack playlist with people who hire me that we create together. There's just a lot of fun and cool things I do. I also occasionally will pop a little bubbly and have a celebration at the end, depending on
Mm,
the client and whether they think that's fun.
I love that. Okay, well, let's talk about the teams that thrive. So we just focus on the individual leader. What does the teams that thrive look like?
So the Teams That Thrive workshop is something that clients would hire me for from a team effectiveness perspective. So this is where an organization wants to measure how their teams are showing up. So they would hire me to come in and do a brief assessment before the talk. And then
Mhm,
in that talk, I actually debrief the results of the data. And
mhm,
together and collaboratively, we uncover what outcomes and strategies we're going to use as a team in order
mhm.
to move past some of the cultural productivity and value-based gaps we have. So
Nice.
that it can be done in two ways. For a private engagement, which is what I'm talking about here, a client would hire me to come in and do a team effectiveness assessment. And then I would follow up with a debrief for the entire team. Typically, this is for a team of about no more than 20, right? 20 or less. And it takes 2 to 6 hours, depending on how far the team wants to go. So it's a
Mhm.
longer engagement, but they leave with action items,
Yeah.
agreements, and goals to work on as a team to move forward in the areas of productivity,
Mm.
culture, and the other word that I said that I can't remember right now because I'm a little bit nervous.
Oh, the goals piece.
Goals. Yes, that's
Yeah.
right. Goals.
Like I'm just writing it down. So I
And I
love it.
can actually do that for a bigger conference as well.
Yeah.
I have like a quick assessment I can do in the room that
Mhm.
starts a real strong conversation around how do teams show up effectively. And for that kind of talk, I tend to lean towards more how to build diverse teams. And we have more of an inclusivity conversation, given that I'm coming from a lens as someone who is an only at many tables.
Yeah.
So there I'm starting to really push around how do we show up as leaders of diverse teams and what does that look
Oh, I love that. Okay, I already know where I need to send your profile for
like?
I love it. And then tell me about the women in tech space that you hold, or
Yeah,
not
so
necessarily space, but what does this look like for a
well,
client?
I often deliver a Women in Tech Power Hour, which is
Okay.
an hour session, typically 45 minutes to an hour. It could be longer, where I invite women in tech to come together. And this is more of an inspiring space
Okay.
where I challenge them to articulate some of the opportunities and challenges that they see, and then I reframe those challenges as opportunities. And
Mhm.
the real premise in this one is, and I'm going to try to express something here that is difficult to express in words because I typically use a visual for this, but we do a lot of talking about the glass ceiling. And I
Yeah.
challenge every participant in the Women in Tech Power Hour to observe their own internal glass ceiling and
Mm.
how internally we ourselves
Mhm.
have a ceiling, and
Mhm.
that ceiling is actually the one that needs to be broken through versus the perceived glass ceiling of the system. And
Mm.
we begin a dialogue around how can we move past this internal glass ceiling
Yeah.
and the perceived glass ceiling that exists in the system related to women in tech, so that we can show up with new words,
Mm.
so that we bring more of what we need in our roles
Mhm.
intentionally. So
Yeah.
really just challenging that idea of a glass ceiling and what our role is there.
And I think the fact that the coming together with women and being able to challenge that is like such an important piece
Yeah.
that most companies know and leverage for sure, and can see the benefit of doing something like this for their women only, you
Yeah.
know?
And one of the things that I think I do uniquely is I'm not a system basher. That's
Yeah.
not my style.
Mm.
I don't, I mean, as much as I understand that there are systemic issues that are beyond us,
Mm.
I don't create spaces where we're like going to bash our colleagues, but instead, how can we come alongside and show
Yeah.
up more authentically so that they understand more holistically how to engage with us,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because I like to frame things with the idea that people are showing up in their professional spaces with a positive intent.
Mhm.
And if we assume that, I think we can get more work done.
Yeah. It's like the data that we're seeing of Latinas in tech, not even tech, in the workplace in general, and you literally being part of that 1%.
Yeah.
uh, which sounds crazy.
Yeah, I did
But
it.
it's like you were saying, it's not, companies don't need to do more learning and I mean, they do obviously, but it's not more learning and development. I mean, I see it as a two-way. It's the side of the leaders that are not, they still have bias towards Latinas and, are not promoting, Latinas, like in looking at their repertoire and how does equity and sponsorship exist in your company. But then I like what you're doing and what in the other end of it of let's get together and understand what our frequency channel is and how can we get more clear and how are we showing up, because that's the type of conversations that we need to be having right now, because if we don't, we're not going to see more representation because we're already
No.
in, right? But how do we go up or
Yeah.
grow?
How do we grow? How do we grow up
Yeah.
alongside an organization without bumping up against all of that friction?
Yeah.
Is the place where I speak. I really am in this place of minimizing the friction for people in
Mhm.
tiny and practical ways
I love
because the problem is so big. And we're
Mhm.
not going to solve that in an hour together.
No way.
But there's something you can solve for yourself.
Mhm.
There's something that we can solve in that room together that gives us more power when we leave.
Mhm. I love that. Yeah, it sounds so effective and efficient. And just what, like I was just saying, the types of
Yeah.
conversations that we need to be having for the, like you were saying, the system is complex and the system's always going to take more from you than it can, right? That's how it was designed. But self-awareness is what we need to start working on now.
Yeah. And the data shows that only a very small percentage of leaders in the workplace are aware of themselves.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not for longer.
Not
Much
if they
longer.
come to one of my sessions, they'll be more
Yeah.
self-aware when they leave.
Exactly. Yes, we'll give them the gift of self-awareness and
Yes.
practical ways that they can apply it in their everydays.
Yeah.
Denise, yeah, I'm just excited. We're so honored to have onboarded you as a NOTA speaker and to get to work with you and collaborate. And I know there's going to be so many things. I, of course, have a special place for Latinas in my heart, as I am Latina myself. And we are the most underrepresented in corporate America. And then when it comes to the speaking world, it's even worse. And so I'm very intentional about making sure that we take up space in this industry. And so, yeah.
You're inspiring the way that you've created the space for us to see and find opportunities so that our voices can become part of the narrative.
Yeah.
What I find is knowing that I was one of the rare Latinas sitting at that table in a boardroom or in a room where we're making really complicated technology decisions, is that my insights were absolutely essential to us making informed choices about investments that we made. My view added value. And I'm not unique in that. Our technology teams, our technology organizations, our organizations generally require people who are differently minded
Yeah.
at the table so that they can make the absolute most informed decisions. And my purpose here is to create that diversity of thought without causing upheaval, right?
Mhm.
We can do this and it doesn't have to hurt.
Mm.
It can be fun.
Or take much effort than what we're already doing. Yeah.
Yeah. And we don't have to burn ourselves out to get there.
Mm. I'm into that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm into that because, yeah, that's a whole root within who we are. It's just, yeah, that needs to be unlearned so deeply
Yeah.
every level,
That pushing against really, really hard and challenging things are important to our growth and development, but
for sure.
there are boundaries.
Yeah. But there's a thing, I mean, intensity is good, right? Like you were
Yes.
saying,
Yes.
it's like having that space of challenge and growth. But another thing is giving from a place, emptying yourself for that intensity.
Oh, I love that. I love that,
Yeah.
emptying yourself so that you can accept new information and a new view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Denise, well, thank you for joining us and making space today. I loved having you and learning about your workshops and the work that you're doing. I'm so glad that you're in the space now, because
Yeah.
I definitely think that it is just so timely that this is the conversations that I'm seeing being requested.
Well,
Um,
I'm excited to meet
so
some new opportunities and to serve in this way.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Denise. Muchas gracias.
De nada.